Xây tương thân tình trong đạo Phật, tùy khác màu nhưng một tôn sư. Hôm nay đây cùng nhau họp mặt, quyết noi theo đường Phật giáo Hoàng Dương.
Welcome back from the commercial break. This is part 2 of the show. I just want to continue on what we talked about earlier. When someone doesn't understand the laws of impermanence, they become disappointed or they become sad or depressed because of it. But what if now you understand the laws of impermanence and then you aren't in a position to attach to things anymore? But now when you understand it, you can actually use that law in your favor. For example, can you fly a plane without gravity?
I don't think so.
Yeah. The plane would float. It would be very difficult to maneuver. The reason why it's a pilot were able to fly it right now is because they have the throttle, they have whatever they need to fly the plane from point A to point B. Right? And through the wind, through all that stuff, it helps lift the plane up. Right? So through knowing that gravity pulls you down, but if you learn how to overcome it, you can actually use that law in your favor. The laws of impermanence work the exact same way. The laws of impermanence is basically saying that you have the ability to change your life at any single given point of time, which is now. The now, or this particular moment in time, is the only time that you have the ability to change your life for the future. So once you understand that, how can I use the laws of impermanence in my favor? Right? Remember when I was talking about greed, anger, and ignorance arising in your mind? So we all have the ability and the potential to become enlightened. That means we all have the ability to one day become a Buddha. Reason why we can't do that is because our Buddha nature is covered in greed, anger, and ignorance. Think of it this way. If I have a diamond worth $100 million, right, and this diamond worth $100 million, if this diamond were to be covered in mud, right, and it's covered in grime, it's covered in gravel, it's covered in dirt, covered in dust, layers and layers and layers of it, thick layers, right? Is it possible? Oh, no. What is the value of the diamond if it's still covered in all these layers?
The value would still be the same.
$100 million, right? Will all of these layers affect in any way the value of the diamond? Will it affect it?
No.
No. And so our Buddha nature is the exact same way. We all have this potential, the seed, to one day become enlightened. Reason why we aren't enlightened is because we have layers, and I mean layers, thick layers of greed, anger, and ignorance covering this. Right? However, the Buddha nature is in the core, and we have the ability to reach the Buddha nature like an onion. How do you get to the core? How do you get to the core of the onion?
You must remove a layer by layer.
You remove it layer by layer, layer by layer, layer by layer, right? So, for example, the laws of impermanence. Greed arises, right? I do not react to it. It arises only to pass away. So it's kind of like removing a thin layer, right? Anger arises. I do not react to it. I observe it. It arises only to pass away. Ignorance arises. I observe it. I do not react to it. It arises only to pass away. So eventually, I'm peeling off these layers. But however, what happens when I react to it? I'm applying more layers.
Oh, it works the other way.
Yeah, it works the other way. So now when we understand the laws of impermanence, we're using that law in your favor to get down to the core of your subconscious mind that holds all that is, all that ever was, and all that ever will be, the infinite knowledge of the Buddha nature inside the core of your subconscious mind. But we can't see it because of all these layers of greed, anger, and ignorance. You get it?
Yeah.
And so another way we can implement the laws of impermanence is say, for example, you're in a position right now where you're depressed or you're sad. You went through a breakup. You went through some form of job loss. You have a loss of family member. It's something that puts you in a position of despair and depression. Now, you have to understand, you can stay in that state of mind for a long time because now you're attaching your mind to the suffering that prolong it from day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. Or you can understand how the laws of impermanence work, so anything that arises will only pass away, right? And so now you understand how everything is constantly changing. Now, if you understand how everything is constantly changing, sadness arises only for a brief second. But if you prolong to it, if you attach yourself to it, you prolong it. But if it arises and you observe it non-judgmentally and you realize, okay, it happened because it had to happen. And now you're in a position to move on. You're using the laws of impermanence in the way that you understand how the laws work. You're not trapped in a position to just be blindsided by it, but you're in a position to like, okay, I need this happen and it need to happen. Now I get to move forward. Now that's implementing the laws of impermanence.
Yeah, I guess to summarize, I feel that's very powerful because to understand this is simple concept, which, when I went to school in elementary or middle school or even high school or college, no one talks about, or really wants to understand how deep it goes into how everything is constantly changing. Because I feel, as a Buddhist monks practicing myself, that the more you understand just that one concept alone, if you focus a lot of your energy during the day to understand that, then outpours an output of harmonious lifestyle in terms of, as you view it more in the correct sense, as if don't cling on to those depressive moments, and knowing that those are also subject to change, that you really kind of remedy that with a immense sense of gratefulness to how precious it is to come across this kind of teaching.
Exactly.
And so it's learning this, law of physical and non-physical, something that we should practice in terms of, as you said, breath to breath, and in terms of observance of your own feelings.
Exactly.
And so, how much will it affect someone if they already living happily? How do you feel if someone's on the other side of it? If they're already happy, how much can impermanence affect them? Will it kind of cushion their blow, or or can they still become happier?
No, that's a very valid question. They can become happier. Only if they understand how the laws of impermanence work. Because now you're in a position where you're happy. But happiness is like sadness. Even then, it lasts just for a brief second. And those who cling on to the happiness, like, oh, I remember last year my life was good.
Oh, they're kind of stuck there.
And they're stuck in the past.
That's
another form of way that can distract someone. They live a life of drifting rather than non-drifting.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? And so, know that happiness comes. And if happiness comes but goes away, understand that it has to go away. Right? Sadness comes, but it also goes away. Nothing stays forever.
Yeah.
Right? And so a person who understands the laws of impermanence, they wouldn't attach themselves to like the nice cars, the fancy house, the large bank account, or whatever they want that they define as successful or happiness. Right? A person who understands the laws of impermanence would leave those things or slowly separate themselves from that nice car, the fancy house, because they know in the end all of those material things means nothing. Right? And what is the most important thing is their state of mind, their sense of happiness, which is not based on material things, but from the inner self. It's not even from your beauty, because your beauty eventually ages away. Right. Your car eventually will rust away. Your house will eventually start to become dilapidated. Right? your money that you might have eventually might have to go away, or you might not be able to use it due to your old age. You know what I'm talking about? And so you're in a position where when you understand the laws of impermanence, you do not attach yourself to any of it. You start to remove yourself from it. And then you're not caught in a position that you're dependent on it, but rather independent on it.
So I hope that skill takes a long time to develop, because the more we know, the more we're at a state of equilibrium. And from that kind of talk we had, it's not even clinging to happiness itself, but to really appreciate that time, and to also know that all things must pass, but then to understand it further and knowing that at least your actions have some merit to it, whether they're good or bad, and hopefully that carries on in terms of this and next life. So without further ado, that was our talk about passion and about contemplation method.
Yeah. Thank you very much for participating in the show. We hope to see you next week.
西疆吞定中咬佛